So good evening, everyone. I'm Peter Rothschild. I had the idea of putting this panel together because both, I think, this issue is multilateral. It spreads over the sustainability of this island and its challenges. And also, I think, probably many of you don't know what is being done or what needs to be done as far as developing affordable housing on Islesboro. It's intimately related to the future of the school, the sustainability of our island, the availability of workforce people living on the island. All of these are related, not separate issues. And the store, the community center, the library, all of the other facilities we have on the island are, in one way or another, touch the question of the availability of affordable housing. So I hope you will leave this meeting understanding how interrelated these issues are. I'm joined by Mike Nelson, who is the new chairman of Islesboro Affordable Housing. He is also chair of the Housing Committee Subcommittee of the Select Board, and Ned Treslow, who is also on the board of IAP, Islesboro Affordable Housing, and is the development officer there. In case you don't know, I am the chairman of the Select Board, and I am extremely motivated to try and support affordable housing any way we can as a community. I also realized this morning this is my 61st year coming to Islesboro, and my 7th as being a resident of Maine. So with that, I will turn it over to Mike.
That's who we are. As Peter said, the sustainability on the island is a big issue, and it's something that has really come to light over the last couple of years. Housing is a big issue. Cost of housing and availability of housing. The school has faced declining enrollment, and that has a huge impact on the community. And then what we termed as fellowship, which is really community. People need to get out and out together, and that's something that will help us make the island sustainable for the long term. So just a few statistics to throw at you. 40, 50 years ago, there were 215 islands off the coast of Maine that had a year-round population. That could be as little as 2, it could be as much as 6, 7, 800. Right now, there are only 13 islands that have year-round populations. What we want to make sure is that Islesboro is not the next one to fall off that statistic. Housing costs, housing prices in Maine have gone through the roof. 6 years ago, median price within the state was $277,000. And the latest number that came out about a month and a half ago was the median price at $436,000. So it's a 46% increase. Islesboro, while small enough that it doesn't come into some of the statistical analysis, I can easily say that we are a minimum of 25% higher than the state, if not more. And based on some work that IAP has done, it really is a little bit more just to build a house. Anybody who's been around for a while and listened to people talk about the state of Maine have heard that it's a statement that was made on a number of different occasions. State of Maine is the oldest state in the Union. Waldo County is the oldest county in the state of Maine, and Islesboro is the oldest township in Waldo County. Therefore, we're the oldest town in the land. So, and it has been steadily growing, especially over the last 6 to 8 years. That is part of why our school population is declining. We're not attracting younger people. And at the same time, a number of people who are in the workforce, the tradespeople that we rely on day in and day out, have moved off the island, and so we don't have them here anymore. And so our services, we wait longer for services. Try getting your car fixed on the island and tell me how. If you do get it fixed, tell me who you went to. The commuting costs, obviously, we're all aware of what's happened with the ferry costs. So just commute here is expensive. So we want people to come here, and we want them to live here, and we want them to work here, because nobody's going to come here and want to work on the mainland. So we need to make sure that we can attract people for the services that we all need.
And to that point, one of the things that's fundamentally changed since the 1970s, and we've all seen it, is the number of people who are willing to commute from 30, 40, 50 minutes away from Lincolnville, and come all the way to Lincolnville, get on the ferry, and come over and work on this island. And that's not just in the summer. You can be here in March, and there's a long line, we all know, to come over on Monday morning. So we have an interesting challenge in that we have a fantastic pool of job opportunities that are clearly paying enough for people to make that commute. And the question is, why are they not choosing to live on the island? And as we'll discuss, part of that is the cost of housing, but there's community and other things.
As Peter had said, Ned and I are on the board with Islesboro Affordable Property. And this is an organization that has been around for well over 30 years and has put a number of houses in the community. IAP has bought or built 16, 17 houses. Of those, we own and rent 10 of those. We still own the property on the other 6, but the current residents are the owners of that. So we feel those are houses that are absolutely committed to affordability. And part of even for those that own their house, there are deed covenants that will restrict pricing if they resell it. Again, the focus there is to make sure that they remain affordable for people who are need it. Maine Housing was a big monetary supporter to IAP, and with that comes obviously a lot of restrictions in terms of how much you can lease the house for and what you can resell it for. So we have to make sure that we meet those requirements. Over the last 12 to 18 months, when a lot of government money started to dry up, we ended up raising more money, which gave us the opportunity not only to address affordable housing, but it gave us the opportunity to address workforce housing. Because it was done with private money, we didn't have the same kinds of restrictions. Everybody who is in an IAP house today is within the town workforce. We have people who work in the stores, in the schools, we have teachers, we have people who work for the town. So the folks that IAP is serving are the folks that we all rely upon every day, and we want to make sure that we can keep doing that.
And I would add to that the history and the mission of IAP has been to ensure that people who want to build a life here and have jobs here and raise a family here are able to access clean, affordable housing. And to give a little perspective on that, 10 years ago, you could buy a 2 or 3 bedroom house for $250,000, $300,000. Now that's really not possible. And if you're a family where both husband and wife work and they have 2 kids and they earn $80,000 or $100,000 a year, you really cannot pay $500,000 for a house. The math just doesn't work. And there are quite a few houses on the market today, but it's very rare to see anything under $500,000. So there's that margin in there. Most of our residents are people who work full time and are doing things in the town. They're very productive, but you can't make that math work if you're not making well over $100,000 a year.
Just in support of that, I think anybody should just, any day of the week, go down and look at how many people, walk-ons, get off the 8 o'clock ferry. over 100 people, and it's throughout the year. I've been here in February and March and April and counted the same number of people getting off. The annual sales of ferry tickets on the Islesboro ferry, vehicles and walk-on passengers, 88,000 per annum.
So we continue, we have challenges, we know that, and they are very difficult. No, sorry, we can go one more, yeah. The demand that we have for housing is dramatically increased. So we put, we being IAP, put 4 housing units on the market, or into the market last year. And of that, 2 of them were standalone houses and 1 duplex. We had 4 to 5 times the number of applicants for those spots than we had places for them. So we know that the challenge that we have still exists. There are people on the island who are underhoused, as well as people who would like to come to the island that need housing that can't afford it. So we know we have a lot of work that we have to do, and so some of the solutions are we need to work with other community organizations, working with the town government, obviously, with the Housing Committee, with IESC, which is the Sustainability Corporation, to come up with programs, if you would, that would allow us to put more housing on the market. In order to be successful, we do need access to more capital. There's not a lot of government money that's available today at any level. And so, you know, we have to go out and look for money in the private market. We need land. If we're going to build houses, we need a place to put them. IAP still has a little bit of land, but if we're as successful as we would like to be, we're going to need more land. And then the other part of it is we have to come up with a way to build a house that's for a lot less money than we're building today. We are probably, as I said earlier, at least 25% higher per building than it is just across the way in Lincolnville or Northport. And we need to come up with building methods that will reduce the price. Some of that says maybe we go to a smaller house. We're not going to build as big a house as we're used to building out here. We're going to need land use ordinances to change. We have town centers now that allow smaller plots. We might need to even go smaller. And that, again, requires a commitment on the part of the community to have the people in the community that we all need to service what our needs are day in and day out.
And to add to that, we've been very, very fortunate to have a generous community who's consistently given over the years. We right this minute have enough land in order to build out another 4 or 5 houses. So land is not the most urgent item. Getting the houses built obviously is the challenge, but what we've found is that if we do build them, there are plenty of young people who are eager to stay on the island, want to stay on the island, and are either underhoused right now or in housing that they probably can't afford. So this is a problem that can be solved, and it is being solved on a regular basis. The challenge is, can we do it as quickly as possible? Because you all know that the school population has dropped significantly, and that's partly because it's hard for young people to live on the island. And it's a very solvable problem. We also have a lot of open land on this island that is owned in very big chunks, and we are quite comfortable that we can get that as the need comes up. So these are issues that can be addressed. For us, it's always how quickly can we do it.
The environment that we would like to see created that would, in fact, attract year-round, 24/7 weekend staying.
So the question always comes, if you built 50 new affordable houses, would there be enough people here to live in them? And People choose to live on Islesboro for a lot of different reasons. One of the challenges for young families is there enough to do? This is what we hear from some of the young families. They would prefer to live in Belfast or Rockland, both of which have very good sustainable housing programs. And so as part of the overall challenge, Islesboro Affordable Property can increase the stock, the housing stock of affordable houses. But what are the other things that the community can do? This building, I think, is an excellent example of the community coming together and saying there has to be a place where families can come together and do things. But that's going to be an ongoing issue. People talk about having a restaurant all the time, and places where families can gather. So that's beyond the scope of what Islesboro Affordable Property does, but we do discuss it, and certainly at a higher level. Peter's team is always talking about that. How do we make this an island where young people feel they have what they need in order to want to stay? We know that they can work here. There's plenty of work, but does it have the other factors? And so our mission is to make sure that they can have a nice, decent, clean place to live and raise their children, but it will take more than that too.
Next slide.
So
Go ahead.
So anyway, just to give you a sense, many of you have probably seen some of these houses, but these two are called the Schnorr cottages, and that's because the Schnorr family was very, very generous in giving the land where we are currently building new homes. These two homes are single-family homes that are about 1,400 square feet, 3-bedroom, and they were filled immediately upon completion. One family works full-time for the town and for one of the stores. The other family has 2 teachers in it, and all of them have kids who are in the school. So this is a great example of creating an environment where people who are committed to living here on the island, and frankly were not living in very good circumstances before they were able to move into these brand new homes. And they were occupied, I believe, in February, March of this year. So December of this year. As quickly as we can get them built, they come in. And so that is part of a road, and if you drive past these two, and they're just right up here, we have 6 more locations for homes that we can put in. And if we go to the next slide, this is our next model, which really has been created with a lot of help from Barbara's leadership over the past dozen years, Earl McKenzie. And what we're trying to do is create housing that is clean and safe and reliable, but also hopefully affordable for us to build and the occupants to live in. This is 2 apartments in one building. We call these the town center homes, and they're both occupied immediately upon completion. One is occupied by a young tradesman who is a wonderful young guy, and he's been to trade school, and he is going to be a full-time plumber here on the island, and going to raise a family. And each one of these apartments is about 750 square feet, but it's got 2 bedrooms, living room, kitchen area, and a bathroom. And it's really, they're very, very nice. And we can put up this unit for between $600,000 and $700,000. Really, one of the big swing factors we run into here is the road building, the septic, and the well can be quite expensive. So once we have the road in, and we have wells drilled and septic system established, we can have some economies of scale where we can get 4, 5, or 6 of these on the same road and hopefully get the unit cost and the square footage cost down. One of the challenges, frankly, we face is that the contractors on Islesboro are extremely busy. And to their credit, if they have a choice to build out or refurb a $3 million project or to work on a smaller project, it's tough for them to do that. We currently are using a contractor who's a very young guy and has a really good team, and they built these beautifully. But you know, he has to come over from Rockland, and all of his people come over to do that too. So if we go to the next slide, we'll give you a sense of, and this is a little tough to see, but all of this is across the street from the store. All of this is on land donated by the Schnorr family. And all of this was established under Barbara's leadership over the past 10 years. If you look on the left-hand side, there's two dark red structures. Those are the two that we just saw, the Schnorr cottages, and they are complete and they're occupied. The first yellow one up towards the top is the one that we just showed you, which is we call them duplexes. They're 2 apartments, and that is complete and occupied. And then number 4, 5, 6, and 7. 4 is under construction. The foundation has been laid. We're working on road and septic and plumbing. But our goal is, in order to drive down the cost per unit, to be able to build them not 1 at a time, but perhaps 3 or 4 at a time. And that's just a challenge that we've issued ourselves, which means we're going to go out and raise the money in larger quantities so that we can get them done. When you come in to do a foundation, for example, it's much easier to get someone to come in and do 4 foundations than to do 1 foundation. And so our mission in the immediate term, let's say the next year or 2, is to be able to complete all of this. And you've created a wonderful neighborhood with people who are committed to living on the island. And that begins to address some of the challenges for these young people who want to stay on the island. So I'll pause there.
So in sum, the question of sustainability of life as we know it on Islesboro is fundamentally this issue. Can we attract young families, workforce families to this island? That has an immediate and direct impact on the school and maintaining a population of school-age kids that reaches a critical mass where we're not combining different grades to create, or I've heard complaints from students who, you know, they see the same 3 kids every day at school, and there is a question of critical mass in the school directly related to this question of affordable housing. Underscored in all of this, though, you must appreciate this is a competitive business. The school population in Belfast, in Camden, in Rockland is diminished from what it once was. Vinyl Haven, North Haven, Swans Island, all Stonington, they all have programs to build more affordable housing because they recognize that this is a fundamental issue to the sustainability of life as we know it in a community such as this one. So I hope if you take away this evening one thought, these are all related. They're not separate issues. And we can get into the minutia of how to build cheaper houses or whether the pace needs to be ramped up, or discuss, you know, the absence of 24/7 activities, restaurants, so on. But fundamentally, this is the future of Islesboro. And it is a critical issue because we are at a very, very significant moment in time when the school population is down and we are competing with all these other communities to attract more people to the island.
At this point, we're happy to entertain questions. Whoa.
I'm assuming that the dotted road is not completed yet,
That is correct.
and I also assume that you've looked into prefabricated housing?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's always a discussion of what is the best, fastest, most efficient way to build a house. And The first two that we showed you, the Schnur cottages, were modular, constructed in a factory and brought over. In hindsight, it worked reasonably well. The cost per square foot was pretty good. But we did have some quality challenges in getting it set up, and it was also very, very expensive to bring them here. We had to hire barges and do all this stuff. So the reality is that modular can work if you do it right. I happen to be a huge believer in manufactured homes if they're properly built. That's a possibility. There are kit homes that can be done. So we continue to look at what is the best way to build housing that will last in a very, very harsh environment. Earl?
Just wanted to add a couple things. We were speaking about critical mass, and it's not just for the school, but there's a critical mass as far as having a restaurant, having certain facilities. At one time, this island supported many more people. There was a restaurant and the various functions. So by doing this, we get more people out here, then it becomes a reasonable financial endeavor for someone to have a restaurant and do things throughout the year. And just to add to what they were saying about the houses, we did look into various prefabricated houses, and we also met with people on the mainland doing this as well. And actually in Belfast, they're doing a 75-house subdivision, and they came up with the idea the best setup they could come up with was a duplex similar to what we're doing. Of course, they had city water and city sewer, which we don't have. We have to do our own system there. But the duplexes that we're doing now seem to be the most practical. It's come up, well, how about a quadruplex or a triplex? Well, different regulations come into effect to make it impractical on an island. For example, if you go to a quadruplex, you've got to have a sprinkler system, which means you have to put a big tank in the ground. The expense becomes enormous. So there's a reasonable chance we'll continue with the duplexes. And in one of the photos where you saw the blue duplex in the distance, you can see where we already have the foundation poured now, and the septic system is going in for number 4 that we hope to have completed this summer.
Thank you. Chris?
What is critical mass at the school in terms of average kids per class, and where are we right now?
Well, I can't answer factually, specifically what the critical mass is, but during the height of COVID, there were over 100 kids in the school, and next year we're projecting somewhere between 46 and 47, I think, students. So it has been a precipitous drop in the population. And some of these problems that arise from a smaller school population, small classes, combined classes, what the kids are able to do, the cost of getting them to the mainland, to events on the mainland, all of these have a scale component. And I know that the school committee has hired Dan Tudor to do a marketing campaign to attract more magnet students, that is, students that just commute here to go to school, which is the most efficient, immediate way of addressing the diminished population. But it also goes to this issue of housing and who can afford to live here and who wants to live here. Sam?
If it's such a sort of an island-wide problem, which I honestly believe it is, then what's wrong with dealing with it the same way as we dealt with getting internet throughout the island and everything, which is to raise a certain amount of money from the private sector, and the rest becomes a bond that becomes part of the obligations of the island. So that if you got all this money early on, you could then have the scales of cost reduction that you're looking for. Now, nobody likes the idea of saying, let's raise taxes. But if this is so critical, then shouldn't this be something that the town budget is dealing with? And why haven't they put a lot of money into it as of right now?
Okay, great question. As we used to say in the Friends meeting, this Quaker speaks my mind. We did last year, as an initial tiptoeing into this question, put some money in the town budget specifically to support affordable housing. As speaking for my role on the select board, I think this ought to grow significantly. Mike and the IAP, along with the Islesboro Sustainable Economic Development Corporation, on whose board I sit as well, we are in the process of developing what will amount to a public-private partnership to do exactly as you're suggesting. I think it's too bad it hasn't been done already, but I think that is definitely where we should be going. Go ahead.
I've heard a criticism about these houses, that they're not really affordable at all. And the one thing you haven't talked about is the salaries that people on the island are making. And that has to play a role in here too. So where does that fit in? What are the average salaries?
Great question.
Excellent question. Now, in terms of affordability, the houses that are rented at affordable rates. As a matter of fact, IAP actually subsidizes the rent for those houses.
Can you share?
Yeah.
It varies. Not every house is exactly the same. Not everybody's been in it the same amount, but I can tell you.
To give you an idea, though, is $800 to $1,400 a month for a house that is 1,000 to 1,500 square feet, which is well below the market level. But here's a misconception that's very important. IEP was not set up for people who really have no money whatsoever, right? It really was set up for people who want to and are able to build a life on the island. And so someone who's making, let's say, less than $40,000 a year probably can't afford $1,200 a month in rent. And that's where we've run into a little friction occasionally, because we have turned people down, and we'll take a family where the husband and wife have a combined income of $80,000 with a couple of kids in school instead of someone who is not in that category. So it's a very real issue, but they're two different populations.
As far as the renters are concerned, on a sort of room-per-room basis, is it less expensive to rent an apartment in a duplex than it would be a house? In other words, is it cost per room less in an apartment than a house?
Yes, the rent is structured based on the size and the number of people. I mean, obviously, we look at a number of different ways to fill a house. On a 3-bedroom house, you're not looking to rent it to a single individual. You're looking for a couple or a family with children. In the duplex, right now, in both of them, they're single people who are able to rent a house, and all of them were in somewhat less of a housing situation before we opened them up. They are affordable.
But we want to mention it's not just one person.
No, they're all 4 bedrooms in the duplexes are filled, and that was one of the goals that we had when we went and opened everything up for application. So, obviously we'd like to be able to build the houses less expensively, which is going to take a lot of different actions to make that happen. And Islesboro affordable property is just that. We want to make sure that whatever we put on the market is somewhat affordable, either to people who are in the affordable category or in the workforce category. As far as what people make on the island, that is something that's kind of outside of our control. We are aware of it as to what people can afford, but we obviously can't set the wage rates.
And one metric we use, which is nationally used, is that your housing costs should probably not exceed 25% of your gross income. So if you're, as a family, bringing in $75,000 a year, then your rent of $1,000 a month probably works. But we look at the income, people who apply to be renters, we look at their income, and we will adjust the rent up or down within a range based on what they earn. And so someone who maybe is on the lower end of the scale will get a slightly better deal, because we want them to be able to thrive in this environment. And to us, if we get $1,200 a month or $950 a month, it's not going to break our bank. What matters is we want the right people in the houses as much as possible.
I'm sort of curious to see how people who have moved into these houses or live in existing IAP houses, how they're involved in sort of thinking through the future of this little community that they live in, what kinds of involvement they have moving forward, and sort of how you interact with them once they've taken up residency. Are they a voice that you're listening to?
We definitely do hear from them, and I think we have a property manager who actually lives in one of the houses, who has lived in that house for over 10 years, and his ear is to the ground, so there's not a lot that goes on that isn't fed back to us, whether it's positive or negative, and I'll say there are both sides of it. And so, yeah, we do get a fair amount of feedback from the people who were there.
Are there people who are occupants in the houses who are on the IAP board?
I don't think so.
Barbara
would know the answer to that.
Currently, it's a goal to get some people on board who are.
Yeah, because I think that would be.
Yes, I think that's important.
It looked like a couple of the original houses, there's some individual ownership, not AAP, which I think in terms of trying to build a long-term taproot, if you own a house, you're going to do quite differently than if you rent a house. And what are the plans for these new houses? Are you trying to build in sort of an ownership component so that they really will set more of a taproot to them?
The two new houses that Ned talked about were built with Maine housing money, which precludes us from putting together a sale, because Maine housing money is effectively a loan. It is a loan that covers a period of time, and if you meet all of their requirements over 35 or 40 years, then they'll forgive the loan. So you have a ways to go before the house is really, on the market to sell. In terms of the duplexes, which are the other ones that we're building, and as Earl said, we're looking at building more of them, we would have to study like a condo situation with those in terms of if we were going to sell them. We haven't gotten there yet. What we're really focused on right now is getting more houses, and what we know and what we're capable of doing is getting the houses up and getting them filled and getting them rented, and that is our primary goal right now.
And Philip, I would say this is a lively debate amongst the board over time, and the model for IAP has evolved over the years. The original thought was, can we build these houses and then eventually have the occupants of the house own the house, which would, in my opinion, would be wonderful. One challenge is, how do you ensure that housing structure remains in the affordable category once you've sold it? I think there are ways of ensuring that. there is actually, I think there are two examples where the owners, the people living in the houses, renting them from IAP, ended up buying the house. And I'm thinking of one particular house where that family has grown to be a very, very big part of this island. So I'm a big believer, if we can get them where more and more people own their houses, that'd be fantastic. Right now, the issue we face is how can we ensure that those don't enter the market and then trade to the point where they're no longer affordable. But it's an excellent point.
I didn't see any solar on these houses, and the cost, have you done the arithmetic on that? Because the cost of putting solar on a small house is not that much. It could be, if you're already paying $700, what's $720? And that could save the family that's there $200–300 a month in electric bills and heating bills. So that could be very attractive.
We're going to have Earl answer that question when we talk about it a bit.
Well, some of the locations don't work, but we're also, I think we'll be looking into buying into a solar farm. That's something we're going to be talking about in a future meeting as a means of reducing the cost. But, or if we had a property where we could put a larger solar ground-based unit or something for that matter that could be shared or something. But I think our best way forward right now would probably be to buy into a solar farm for the places.
Yes?
So, given the houses you now have with these new ones, and your plans for more rather soon, and hopefully for quite a number more, is it your vision that affordable housing and/or the town will then now be in the landlord property management business, or do you have plans to kind of outsource that?
We are already in the landlord management business. And,
But it's not the town.
It's not the town. The organization of Islesboro Affordable Property has an operating budget, and we have a property manager, and we collect rent from each one of the locations, and when there's an issue, we arrange for the plumbing to be fixed or whatever it is. And one of the challenges of that is that you need an organization to manage all these houses. And one of the appeals of having them owned individually is that people build equity in their houses, and then they can take care of their houses. As we stand today, the model that has worked the best so far for IAP is we continue to own and control that house, and we lose money. We spend more money maintaining these houses than we bring in rent. But it's not a staggering loss. To give you a sense, we need to raise about $50,000 or $60,000 a year to make sure that all the houses are in reasonably good condition, because we have rent and we have donations. So our operating budget is not overwhelming. Our capital budget to build houses is as much as we can possibly raise. And so we are a landlord, and there are good things about that and things that are less appealing about that.
If I may follow up on my wife's fine question and Philip's fine question, if you were to sell the houses you have, that frees up capital that you could reinvest in new housing, potentially in material amounts.
Yes.
So, and I got the sense that one of the biggest gating factors you have is you need more money.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are you thinking about it?
So not all houses can be sold because, again, depending upon where the money came from. We're probably talking maybe only about 4 right now that.
6, I think.
6.
6, yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, and that actually our board has brought that up as, for a workshop to come up with a way possibly to do that. Haven't gotten there yet, hopefully we will. I have talked a lot with other islands relative to what they're doing, because we're not alone in this, by the way. And one of the things that has kind of come to the forefront is none of these islands want to get, as from a governmental point of view, want to get into the housing business. They don't want to be a landlord. They don't want to have to hire and maintain a housing authority. And so a couple of them are looking just at that. How do I build and sell? What they are facing is how do you keep it affordable? And that is something, and as Ned said, yes, you can do things in deed covenants that can at least cap the amount of capital growth that an owner would be able to take out of it. All of these are great questions, and they are not, unfortunately, as simple to answer as we would like, but it is something that we know we really have to do. We have to be able to build cheaper, and we have to be able to come up with ways that we're not losing money on that. As Ned said, we are in effect underwriting some of the original sale or leases because they are for affordable living, and the amount that we can charge people is less than we would like. So, Earl?
Point, we actually have sold properties. And,
Barbara, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to say that we have attempted to sell some of them to the residents, and we've variably been successful in them. And there's an argument or a discussion among the various communities about what the best model is. Is it to rent? Is it to sell? Is it to sell the house but maintain control of the land as a way to keep the houses affordable, to control the turnover of the houses?
I'd just like to say to that point, I am convinced that we need to visit the question of people who are, the competition to buy up affordable housing here is driven in part by the needs that have developed to house staff of the other property owners. And we need to understand legally how we are able to protect the affordable housing for the people we're trying to attract.
Ted, you've had your hand up for a while.
Thank you. One thing is I would suggest that there are some people on the island that don't feel we need restaurants and other things to be happy. We've toured 63 years of it, and we've come and gone with those, but I think that may not be the most important thing, but that's up to the people you speak to. One thing I would suggest is that I would ask a question around, have you considered the current dynamics in the market, which is that 80% of the land is owned by 20% of the people. And that's occurred relatively recently over the last 10 years, and that every year we see multiple houses going to single owners, or at least seemingly single owners. And if there's a way to change that dynamic and that behavior, then more things come on the market. But that would require government intervention around flip tax regulations, or as someone down here said, raise taxes. Well, raise it on the people that can afford to stop that. Or you could do something of those natures of regulation in order to prevent all of this from having to happen the way we're building tract housing now. Because we all know that over the centuries we've looked at it in cities around the world, and this doesn't work out too well when you start building this kind of housing structure. So anyway, I suggest that maybe there's another solution, which is to change the behavior of what's happening.
I was told when I became a selectman, because my first suggestion was a flip tax, and apparently there's a state law or against that, but I think there are ways around that, and we're going to find
tax, and that's right. Multiple home ownership comes out.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of people who have done that before. New York, for instance, New York City is going through it right now. It raises its own set of political quagmires, and part of what we're trying to do is take a path to get us where we want to go with hopefully the least resistance, because I'd hate to get into a tax fight over building two houses for people who need them. So, but I do understand where you're coming from.
Gail, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. First, I want to commend the presentation and the questions. It's apparent how thoughtfully you are approaching this. And you can hear... You can hear some urgency in some of the voices of the audience but I hope they're also seeing the care and thought that's going into this. But I do have a question. In the realm of cheaper and manufactured housing, which I know is dear to your heart, Ned, and with which you have great experience, I'm aware of at least one tiny house that came over on the ferry. I have no idea what it cost. Maybe you do. But have you looked at a solution like that?
Funny
Yes
you
is
should
the answer,
ask.
yeah.
Funny you should ask. I happen to be planning to go to the planning board tomorrow. And I am going to talk to them about laying the groundwork for them to think about a tiny house community. Now that takes a fair amount of change because we have land use ordinances. I think everybody here probably knows over the last 6 years what it took to get town centers through. A tiny house community is going to be property that's smaller than a town center lot, but it is also going to be able to yield probably properties that are going to be good for singles or couples that are maybe tops 500 square feet. We have people who think that is a solution, especially when we're talking about workforce people, how to get workforce people onto the island. That's going to take a little bit of thought. It's going to take some people to make some major thought changes themselves because it is very different from our standard 1.5 acre lot. We'll see.
I could add to that a little bit. We did actually visit a factory where they built prefab houses, small houses, different levels. And a tiny house is different classifications. You have a tiny house and you go to a small house.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. Like on this island, for example, you can put an 800 square foot, there's an ADU, in addition to your regular house done up to an 1.5 acre lot, accessory dwelling unit. But a small house could be 500 square feet. Tiny house, usually under that definition, they're driven over the road. You know, they're 8 feet wide by so long. They're really small and they have certain limitations. But there is an in-between that we thought about perhaps pursuing for, you know, a young couple, for example. And they could be reasonably built and probably could be built over here. The transportation becomes a very big issue. Getting something over in the ferry, something you can go a wide load down Route 1, you can't bring down the center line of the ferry. You have a barge, and the barges, for example, we barged over components, $80,000 some odd dollars a trip. So it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So if you and I'll use a live example. IAT just is in the process of finishing a building up on Main Road. That was built in panels in a factory in Belfast. That building, which is, I forget how large it is, a sizable building, came over on 7 trucks. 7 trucks that probably cost a little over $5,000 to get here, which is about, what, 8 or 10 times cheaper than it took to get modular houses over. So you need to be able to, again, that's part of how do you do it most economically. Ned has a lot of experience in that, and getting something that you can put on the ferry, yes, it's going to be inexpensive if you look at only what was moved there, but in the cost of the overall cost of the house, it is much, much less expensive than bringing, you know, the big house kind of a thing. So, you know, I mean, we're thinking through all of that to try to get where we need to be.
Bill, you've had your hand up.
How many of your applications, did you have any applicants from away?
Well, that is, the short answer is no. And that's one of the challenges we face here is that when we were building these houses, we made a concerted effort to reach out to the people on the ferry who are coming over every day. And one of our real disappointments was that they did not apply. And we gave them handouts, we talked to them, we sent 1,500 mailers to Lincolnville, Camden, et cetera. And that goes to the question of why. And I think that's partly their perception of affordability. But the other part of it is, do they want to live on a small, quiet island? And Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but we have not been successful so far at really attracting people from off-island, with the exception that some of the young people we've been putting into these houses have come out of school, but they had a connection here. And in a great circumstance, we'd be bringing a lot of really skilled people over to build homes here.
On that, have you guys thought about ever doing a community presentation in Belfast, Lincolnville, when you have houses available? So I just think people don't know what it's like to live here in the winter, and it's amazing. Like, it's an amazing place to raise a family, it's an amazing place to work, but I don't think people know that. So have you guys ever thought of, like, oh, we're gonna have 3 houses available, instead of just doing mailers, doing some sort, get a couple of the young couples from the island just to talk about our experiences and raising our families here?
It's a great point, and Peter will want to address this, but it's part of some of the money that the town wants to allocate is marketing the island.
And to that end, we have just been talking to Dan Tudor about doing a Islesboro website presentation that would be available for people on the mainland as a marketing tool, with that in mind.
With the President of the United States against housing and increase of housing, you know why. What's the reason for being against housing for people?
That's a wonderful question. I don't have the answer. We'd have to ask him directly, and I'm not sure we'd get an answer. But
We don't have time.
Oh, it did. Okay. And but a wonderful point. And look, in a community like this, there are a lot of different opinions in Islesboro about how to address these issues. And I think what's exciting to us is, of all the challenges we face in our country today, this is something we can do something about. We don't have an absolute magic wand that's going to solve it immediately, but we have the land, we have people who want to live here, we have access to money, we have young contractors who are willing to take on these kinds of jobs, and so we just need to get better and better at doing it and making it happen.
Very quickly, you mentioned that a young plumber is one of the residents, hallelujah. Are any of the other units occupied by tradespeople, and how, when you have more applicants than spaces, what preference do you give for workforce that is immediate?
Yes, the question is, are there other residents in Islesboro affordable housing properties that are tradespeople or are applying to be residents who are tradespeople? And the answer is yes, but I'll let Michael answer that.
I will tell you, one of the most difficult jobs was going through 20 applications to figure out who was going to go into 4 living units. It was not easy. And so we did look at, number one, can you fill the bedrooms? No sense in building a 3-bedroom house if you can't do it, or a 2-bedroom duplex if you can't fill both bedrooms. So we had single people who applied. I won't say they were, they deserved more or less than anybody else, but single person into a 3-bedroom house or a 2-bedroom house didn't make a lot of sense when you had that many people applying. Yes, we did pay attention to what they did. As I said earlier, every one of the houses that we put in has somebody who is contributing to the town. We have one house has somebody who works in the store, and the other parent works for the town. In the other house, we have a preschool teacher, and the husband works as a fisherman. In the duplex, we've got somebody who works in the library and somebody who works at the store. In the other duplex, we've got the plumber, apprentice plumber, and the other individual works in the yacht yard. So those were part of the decisions that we made. It was based on need, where were they living today, and what was that condition of where they were living. And you had to make a decision as to who to pick, and it wasn't easy, but we did it. And we're we've got great people there, and we'd like to be able to put enough houses up that we can fill the rest of them with people who also need it.
Yeah, I'm going to have a prerogative of asking the last question. How much money could you productively deploy right now if you had it?
Well, I tell you, what we could really use right now is about $5 million to build 6 or 7 or 8 beautiful single-family dwellings, and we're in the process of laying out a plan where we're going to aggressively go after that. And this is not a fundraising event, so I won't say anything other than unlimited need and unlimited demand.
I'm just thinking out loud. I remember we raised $8 million for a school and we raised $2 million for a preschool. So that's not all out of the question. I do want to wrap this up. Thank everyone for coming here, the panelists. I think we should give them a round of applause. As Gail said, fabulous work. And now I want to do something I have never done. No nonprofit on this island has ever done this. And that is, we are not asking for money today. This bucket is turned over, and we do this symbolically, so that as you leave and you think about where you might contribute to this island, you are thinking about affordable properties. It's one of our highest priorities. They clearly know what to do with the money. They're just waiting for us to respond. Now, next week, another great topic, artificial intelligence. What is it? How does it work? What can it do for you? And what can it do to you? So please come. We'll see you at 5:30 next Sunday. Thanks, everybody.